All right, you guys, I wanted to create a video in case you needed extra explanation on how to graph. You've been doing a lot so far. Some of you are in different places. I know you've done adding, subtracting, multiplying, polynomials, and I know you have done factoring. And so now you're going to kind of put factoring together with graphing. Quick challenge for you. I'm going to have some instrumental music in the background, and if you guess the song, just put it in the discussion and we'll see who could get the most songs as this video plays. So hopefully this will work. So we're going to go over how do I graph something that's in two different forms. So I have first form right here, which is just a regular polynomial, and then I already have it in factored form for the second. So I'm going to go over each one. Hopefully this helps you, and let's get started. So the first one, we have this, it's called standard form. So standard form is when the quadratic is in a form like this, ax squared plus bx plus c. Right, so we have each term, we have the x squared term, x, and the constant. And so that's a case we have here. And so when it's in this form, the first thing we have to do when we want to graph is find the x-intercepts. And the way we find the x-intercepts is we factor them. Factor that original problem. And so all of your teachers, I believe, are teaching you to put a times c up here. So it would be a 1 times the negative 8. And the b value, negative 2 at the bottom. So we want to know what multiplies to give us negative 8 and adds to give us negative 2. And so the options to give us 8 are 8 and 1, 4 and 2. Which one of those will work? 8 and 1, that will never give us a negative 2. So my only option is to be 4 and 2. If I want it to add to be negative 2, that means my bigger number must be negative. So the negative 4 is the negative factor. We always divide by 1x, divide by 1x. And so now we work bottom to the top to write our factor. So one factor is x plus 2, because it was a positive 2. The other factor, if I work bottom up, is x minus 4. So now we solve that. Well, it's not equal to anything. So to solve it, we want to make it equal to 0. And I don't know if I put that in one of my videos. I think I just did factoring. So when you actually have to solve it, it should be equal to 0 before you do anything. And so once I have it equal to 0 here, I take each factor and I set it equal to 0. And then we solve. So we did a whole solving unit back in first semester. So how do I solve this first one? X plus 2 equals 0. Goal is to get x by itself, so we subtract 2. 2 minus 2 will give us 0, so that'll be x by itself. 0 minus 2. Yeah, you're right. Negative 2. Good. The next one, x minus 4 equals 0. We add 4 to both sides. Negative 4 plus 4 gives us 0. Add 4, and you'd tell me, you would shout out really loud in our class that 0 plus 4 is 4. So those are our two solutions, which also means they are our x-intercepts. So how do I write x equals negative 2 as an x-intercept? Negative 2 is our x value. 0 would be our y if it's an x-intercept. 4 would be our x value, and 0 would be our y value for our x-intercepts. So now I'm going to go over to my graph, and I'm going to plot those 2 points. Negative 2 is our x, so that means we start right in the middle, and we go left 2 to negative 2, 0 for y, so we stay there, we don't move up or down. 4 is our x value, so first I move 4 to the right because it's positive 4. 0 for y, so I don't move up or down. So there's my other x value. So those are our two x-intercepts. So again, how we found the x-intercepts was we factored. Once we factored, we set each of those factors equal to 0 and we solved them. Okay? The next thing we need to do is find the vertex. And so the vertex of the graph is always directly in between our two x-intercepts that we just plotted. So it says use the graph to find the midpoint between the x-intercepts. So first let's do that. What does that mean? So we have this value over here, -2, this over here is 4. What's directly in the middle? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that means what would halfway be? What was it? What? 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to draw a line. If you guys remember, that's called the axis of symmetry. Get rid of this other stuff. So we went halfway in between our two x-intercepts. And that's what the x value should be for our vertex. So what is that green line going through on the x-axis? Right here, it looks like it's at 1. So our midpoint is at 1, 0. Okay? That's the x value. Once I find that x value, I substitute it. I know that's covered up, but it says substitute this value to find the corresponding y value. So what do I substitute that in for? What do I put x in for? Well, way up at the top, whoop, they gave us this original equation. And that's what we're going to substitute 1 in for the x value. So we would have y equals, I'm going to substitute 1 for the x. So I take the 1 out, or the x out, I put 1 in its place, squared, minus 2, take that x out, put 1 in its place, and then minus 8's at the end. Don't forget that minus 8. Some people do. Now I follow the order of operations. Exponents first. So 1 squared. If you can't do these in your head, use a calculator, but make sure you use parentheses because that will affect your answer sometimes. 1 squared is 1. There's no other exponents, so now I'm going to do this multiplication. -2 times 1 is -2, and then of course we have minus 8. So now I'm going to go left to right. 1 minus 2 is -1. Minus 8, we get -9. -9 whoop, was our y value. So when x was 1, y was -9. That is our vertex. And so now we're going to go ahead and plot that. 1, -9. There's our vertex. That's our turning point, remember, as we talked about last unit. That's where the graph turns, okay, or starts reflecting or is symmetrical, starting at that point. The next thing, I don't know if your teachers are going to ask this or not, but if they do, it would be the y-intercept. So let me just really quickly talk about the y-intercept. The y-intercept means x is 0. So if I, again, go back to the original equation and put 0 in for x, what do we get out for y? Well, this would be 0, this would be 0, so -8. So our y-intercept is 0 for x, -8 for y. And that just gives us one other point we can plot. And if we make that point reflect over this green line that I drew, which is our symmetrical line, it would go right here. So again, it just gives us another point to create. Whoop, there we go, something like that. Our quadratic graph, okay? I hope some of this makes sense for you guys. That's if the problem's in standard form, right? So again, we factored, we set each equal to 0, and we solved it. That gave us our x-intercepts. Then we looked at what was the midpoint between those two x-intercepts, and that was that green dashed line we drew. That gives us the x value, and we put that x value in to find the corresponding y value. Well, what if it's not in standard form? So here's one that's not in standard form. This is already factored. How do I know it's already factored? One of the huge things that you look for is there already a set of parentheses? And typically that means it's been already factored. So we don't have to factor in this case. We just have to solve. So what does that mean? Well, we set it equal to 0. And we take each factor. So now here's where a lot of people, kind of get confused. What is it? What are the factors here? X is one of the factors, so we would take that and set it equal to 0. Bam, that's already done. I don't have to solve it. So 0, 0. Then I take my other factor, which is the one in parentheses. I solve it. Add 4, just like the one up above, and we get x equals 4. So my x-intercept there is 4, 0. So I have 2. 1 at 0, 0. So that was right in the middle. And 1 at 4, 0. So I went over to the right 4, but not up and down. Okay, so those are our two x-intercepts. That one was fairly straightforward. Not much work involved, right? Which is kind of nice. So if it's already factored, we just skip that part and we go right to solving. So now that we have our two x-intercepts graphed, we're going to look for what is in the middle. Where is the midpoint? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And so half of 4 would be 2. So we want 2 away from one of these points. So if I go 2 units, 1, 2, there is my symmetrical line, or line of symmetry, or axis of symmetry. And what x value does it cross through? 2. So I have 2, 0 as the midpoint. Process to find the vertex is going to be the exact same thing. We are going to find the vertex by going back to the original and putting 2 in this place for x. So y equals, x is, not 0, x is 2 times 2 minus 4. So I would keep this 2 here, simplify my parentheses. 2 minus 4 is -2, and 2 times -2 is -4. So our y value is -4, and what was the x value that we substituted? The number 2. So hopefully when I graph this, it does look like it is down the middle. I'm at 2, -4. So I went to the right 2, and y was -4, so we went down 4. If we were to find the y-intercept, if your teacher asked for the y-intercept, again, we make x equal 0. So I would have 0 times 0 minus 4. So that'd be 0 times -4, which is just 0. So our y-intercept would be 0, 0, which also happens to be already our x-intercept. And so now I connect these 3 points nicely to make the best kind of parabola U-shaped graph you can. Okay, so those are the 2 types of questions you might have. Feel free to look at this video as you're doing your notes and your homework. I'll leave it posted for a little bit because I know some of you haven't gotten here yet, but I hope you guys are doing well. I miss you, and I hope you're having a couple weeks of nice time with your family. So I hope I can see you soon, and good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you later, guys.